Hey guys, in today's video we're going to be checking out the NECA Toys Contra. This is the NES release of Lance Bean and Bill Riser. Let's grab the tape measure and figure out how tall these characters are. Now, Lance Bean is standing at 7 inches tall. To no surprise, Bill Riser is about 7 inches tall as well. Maybe he's about 7 1/4 of an inch tall, just because of the little bit higher area of his hair. But the figures are roughly about 7 inches in height. Contra was one of those games that as a kid I never had myself. I had the original Nintendo, but often went to my friend's house to play Contra, in which of course I didn't do all that well, and since then have picked up Contra and still love playing it to this day. Getting these two now in hand look incredibly cool. Of course, they've kind of fall within that NES or game-based category for Contra, so their paint application will reflect that. We'll talk about that in a second, but they come with a ton of different accessories, all of which very accurately to, I think, how they appear in the game themselves. Now, both figures appear to be using the Dutch Contra, or the Dutch Predator figure from the folks over at NECA Toys. Of course, they've just changed out their paint, of course, to reflect how they appear in the game, and of course, they got brand new head sculpts. Now, to get these accurately, I know it's Lance Bean and it's Bill Riser. Now, according to like Wikipedia, for example, the NES version, Bill Riser wears basically the exact same outfit as Lance Bean, except his are red. So I'm going to assume that this one here is Lance, and Bill here is the one that's in blue, but I always thought it was the other way around. Anyways, again, like both figures are exactly the same to one another. Even like their holsters and everything on them is exactly the same, which is fairly accurate anyways to the game anyways, because both characters looked identical other than the swapping out of the red and the blue. So we'll first look at, well, again, we're going to go with this being Lance. Here we have Lance, and again, his torso, his lower waist, and his legs appear to be used from the Dutch mold. Of course, the head sculpt is slightly different. Speaking of Dutch as well, you know what, speaking of Dutch, let's move the characters over to the side just for a second and we'll bring in the box artwork. The box artwork, if you are familiar with the game for the original Nintendo Entertainment System, you probably will be very familiar, this of course looked very familiar to you. But the original cover actually used Arnold Schwarzenegger from, I think it was Predator on the front, and it used John Rambo as their two reference guides for the box itself. And actually, just before we look a little further into the characters, one thing I want to also show you too is the inside of the box, which is really cool. It's kind of the interior of one of the bosses. I think that's the boss at the top of the waterfall, if I'm not mistaken. Again, not a game I did all that well with. Konami code came very handy to get yourself your 30 extra lives. But again, let's have a look at the characters themselves. They both also have the gun ammo belt around their torso area here, the digitized camo print pants, and again, both figures are pretty much identical carbon copies to one another. If anything, maybe Lance, for example, has the gloves, whereas Bill doesn't have gloves. But they both have the holsters on the sides, and both support additional pistols and knives. You can take the pistol out of the holster, nicely painted in grays and dark gray, and you can fit it into their hand. Of course, the one with the trigger finger is probably the smarter route to go, and you can see you can fit the finger over the trigger there. He holds it actually quite well. I wish, if anything, the holster wasn't as warped That's just basically how it came out of packaging, was in a warped state like this. So I probably will see if I can try to heat this and then warp it back into place. On the other side, though, he does have a sheath that holds a little hunting knife. And unfortunately, the hunting knife doesn't hold as well, because really the hands are intended to be holding firearms and not so much little an actual knife. But he does come included with that as well. And that's actually both Bill and Lance have those included. So there's Lance. Head sculpt kind of looks very much like Dolph Lundgren from Rocky IV. He's got the nice shading and pixelized. It's not even quite pixelized, it's like cell shaded almost, where the primary color of the body is kind of like a darker tan. And then over top of that, they've put a medium tan and then a very white, kind of light skin tone on top of that. It's jarring if you are picking these figures for a realistic look, then these figures necessarily won't be for you. But if you're picking them up for, again, the source material, the game source material, then again, these characters do actually look a lot more realistic than they do in the game, which are just more pixelized sprites. But again, I think NECA did a really great job of making use of stuff that they already had at their disposal, being the torso, and basically just had to resculpt the head. And I think the head sculpt's actually really good. I might say, if anything, Lance has these crooked kind of cross eyes. I'm not really sure why he's like that, but it looks like the eyes are crossed, and that's a bit of a shame. Bandana is not too bad, although there's a little bit of excess kind of flesh skin tone paint that's carried itself over into the bandana. Other than that, it's not bad. It's not bad. And again, if you go into picking these figures up specifically for the fact that they are NES or game-based figures, then you kind of already know what to expect when it comes to these. Then looking at Bill, again, I thought it was the other way around, but Bill here, Bill Reiser, is basically everything that Lance was, just swapped, of course, in now blue. The pixelized camo print is identical to one another in that it's kind of like a beige sort of color, and then you've got the primary color of the blue. Same has the same holster, has the same sheath with the knife intact. Again, there's absolutely nothing different between these two figures other than the head sculpt. I do really like the head sculpt right here. I don't know. The more I'm looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, could they use this for Predator's, is it Billy? I don't know if the head sculpt is close enough to it, but if they were smart, they would have kind of already sculpted the head sculpt for, I think it's Billy from Predator, and they could have used it here for Bill. And then now they could just simply re-release this, because it looks like the head sculpt is obviously based on the character for the game, but it looks like it could be used for something else as well. I get this feeling coming over me that the head sculpt could be used for something else down the road. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. It has some additional blue highlights in the hair, which is something that I keep getting the two confused, but Lance had. It's got the blue highlights there, and Lance did not have that. Okay, and then there's the back of it. Again, not really all that much different between the two figures other than just the head sculpts. Now, what they do get, though, is they get a plethora of cool accessories. Let's see if we can pan back just a little bit. The starting point for all of it kind of is with this clear disc that NECA includes. And then within that disc, you can then add extra things to it to give you like the extra play value for it. So for starters, you can attach this little piece. I don't know if you can see it, but there's these 3 tab points that you line up. If I can line it up here. There, you line it up, and then you can twist it, and twisting it locks it into place so it's not going to go anywhere. Then this stand could then be used, for example, with this. And it's that sphere that travels across the screen. If you're able to shoot it, it will then drop down an armor add-on or an enhancement to your firepower. If you were lucky, you would get yourself rapid, or you would get yourself the spread. If you were unlucky, you would get yourself the stupid laser. And nobody liked the laser. Powerful, yes, but very lame. Some nice coloring here on it, and generally pretty clean, other than the fact that you've got just a little bit of orange on the side there, but overall it looks pretty good. There's a connector point on the underside, so you can attach that to the base, just like so. At the very least, I would say it's a little on the short side. To the inexperienced players, initially myself, the inexperienced players would have been able to shoot that quite easily. It really should have actually been closer to about here, but I don't see that NECA would have given us a very long neck to accommodate this. That it does seem a little on the short side, I will admit that. Moving that to the side, though, they also come with a series of different weapons, which are kind of cool. For starters, he comes with this small weapon, or they come with this little small weapon. And I thought this one actually disconnected. It looks like it could be the laser, but it doesn't look like it has much in the way of a connector point. Maybe I am missing something here, where you can attach one of these. Unless this is supposed to attach to something else. And then I'm looking at the other firearms. It doesn't look like this actually is supposed to attach to anything. Unless I'm missing something here. Don't think it's supposed to attach underneath. So I think it's actually a standalone gun. It's just painted in or cast in like a dark gray plastic. Then the real meat and potatoes of it all, you get these two firearms. These two kind of larger, they're more like futuristic ray guns, even though on the front I think they're M16s that are on the box artwork, but in the game they're actually closer to being almost more like ray guns or like giant kind of tech sort of weapons. Both of them are similar to one another, just a slight varying color swap out. So dark gray here, lighter gray at the top, and then they've got these little parts here that swing out, just like that. And then within those, there's these little holes on the front that you can attach different adjusted heads. Now this has the two connector points, and then this one here just has the single. To be honest, I find both of them sit really loose. They just won't stay, well, they just won't stay in place. I wish the tab point was just a little bit thicker, that these wouldn't sit as loose as they did. Even like this one here doesn't really sit the most secure. Yeah, it just falls, kind of just falls right out. So they do come with those, and then they come with all these extra firearm, the actual firepower, the actual part that fires out from the gun. I want to say bullets, but they're kind of more like flame, like fireballs than anything else. So for example, if you want to take the single one, which actually seemed to lock a little bit better this time around. See if I can line this one up a little bit better. There we go. I just had it facing the wrong way. There we go. Nice and secure. If you take this one here, for example, it's got just a single nozzle. So what you can do is, NECA includes all these individual fireballs. And I say fireballs, I know they're supposed to be bullets, but let's face facts, they're not really bullets in the game. These just attach to the end nozzle like so, and you can have a single shot. Or each one of them also have a hole on the end, so then you can attach the next one to the previous one. Just like that. I am dropping one. Hold on one second. As I was saying, I am a little apprehensive about the fact that because it's using a clear rod, yeah, it'd be a little worrisome that, again, don't apply too much pressure because that may crack on you. But you can basically keep going with these and just attaching them to the end, attaching one to the end of the previous one in front, and then you can have yourself a rapid fire. I want to just make sure you line this up. Yeah, there's actually a little slot right there, which makes it fit a little bit more, a lot more secure actually. And then you've got the rapid fire. Or what you can also do too, is you can take this one that's got the double end, and it connects to this one here. And I don't know why, but this one seems like it's gotten a little warped. I don't know why it's like this. It looks like it's supposed to be. I guess this is part of a spread. And then from there, you can then just go ahead and add these extra pieces here. So we'll just detach this. There we go. Take these apart. And then because they also have the holes on the end, you can just simply add on to those. So you can give yourself a lance or bill. You can attach those to their corresponding guns, and you can have either a mild spread, or what you can also do too, take this apart, which we were just looking at, and you also have the broader wave of the spread gun. And that just attaches in like so, locks into place. And it doesn't seem like it actually attaches to anything. If anything, you would just display it ahead of the figure, and then you would get yourself the full effect of the spread gun. And by the way, we can go ahead and attach this into their hands. Just like so. There we go. And the way that the gun is, or at least the way that the hand is housed, you can have them supporting the underside of the gun. Just like that. Maybe we'll angle it up a little bit so it looks a little bit more impressive. There we go. And you get something like that. It's nice, but they didn't give you, I think, enough of these. I would have probably gone with maybe another row of these, another single row of these, because I would be wanting to, let me just angle this up a little bit better. I think what I would like to do is I would have one of them with the full spread, standing them upright, and bringing this around. I would have one displayed like this. Just fix this up here. There we go. I would have them, now it sits a little on the weird angle side. I think it's just the way it was warped out of packaging. I don't think it should be as warped as it is. But I would have one of them like this, and then I would have had the other one with the rapid fire. So I probably would have I would have liked to have had maybe another row of these that I could have added to this gun, and then I could have had the other one just with a rapid fire. And again, that just fits in his hand. You can attach this. There we go. And that can just fit over top of his hand. I find that it's not the most secure fit. There we go. In this instance, using all of the add-ons for this gun, ultimately one gets kind of left out. So you might have to kind of pick your poison, decide which one gets the more elaborate of the guns, and then go from there. I still don't like the fact that this angles the way that it does. I don't feel like that's not sitting right. And it's slightly, as you can see, it's really, really curved to the side. I guess you could compensate it by having the arms twist slightly on the firearm that one of them is using, but it does seem like it's a little bit too extreme. Posability on these guys are exactly the same as one would probably expect, and they are the following. So we'll just look at one of them. Head is on a ball joint, so it rotates all the way around. You've got your hinge up and down, of course, your upper torso crunch via that ball joint as well. Universal joints on the arms, so the arms hinge outward, a rotation of arm all the way around. You've got your hinge in the elbow as well as rotation as well. Hands work on a peg point, it looks like, so it kind of works the same as a ball joint. And then you've got your legs split, forward and back on the legs, bend at the knee, rotation on the lower leg, and you've got the articulation and ankle pivot there. Peg holes on the undersides of the feet. Sadly, both Lance and Bill, neither of them come with display bases. Display bases, I think, are something else that this set could have really afforded using, because after all, in the game, you kind of have them more in a running kind of, well, maybe not, not that bad, but you have them in slightly of a running pose that if you had only had a display stand or something that you could have attached one of these two, or both of these two, you could have had them in a little bit more dynamic of a pose. At the way that they are now, what you're essentially just needing to do is you can still pose them, but you have to make sure, of course, you've got enough weight compensated on the legs. Luckily, at least because the ankles are kind of hinging and you've got the ankle rocker, you can accommodate still a pretty cool pose, but I think a display base could have gone a long way as well. NECA has released video game related characters for a while now, but I applaud the fact that they would have entertained the idea of Contra. Still one of my all-time favorite Nintendo Entertainment System games, still a game I play to this day. The figures overall are nice reuses of molds that we've seen before, no real problems there. The head sculpts are good, the paint applications are suitable for a video game related character, and I do like the add-ons that they've given so that you can either have rapid fire or even like the very dreaded spread, of which, of course, a firepower add-on that I was reaching for every time I played the game. Nitpick-wise, even though I do like the fact that you can have all these add-on firepower parts to the guns themselves, they never really feel like they sit properly enough. And the spread is slightly warped. The wider field of spread seems slightly warped to the side, so you have to kind of compensate that by having the character tilting his gun a little bit more further down. I still don't have it 100%. Maybe a few little changes there, and maybe a longer neck for the drop-down balloon or blimp that goes across the screen. Other than that, I think it's a really great add-on and a really great use of reusing molds, which is one thing I know that companies always try to do, is try to reuse molds. Above and beyond just giving us a Dutch or a, of course, Rambo, what are you really going to do with those body sculpts? Well, NECA found the means to do it, and they gave us both Bill and Lance from Contra. And the end result, just shy of a few little tweaks here and there, is an all-around awesome looking set. Today we were having a look once again at the NECA toys. This was the game-related Contra release of Bill and Lance. If you guys haven't had a chance yet to hit that little subscribe button down below, make sure you do so, as you'll never miss a beat when it comes to future videos. And always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.